Beautiful. Alrighty. So just a little bit of housekeeping today. The event will go for around 30 to 40 minutes. We'll try and keep it to 30 minutes, but occasionally it does go over, depending on if there's many questions. We recently ran this event internally, and there was a lot of questions going back and forth. So now's the time to ask questions. So as you will see, you're on mute. You won't be able to talk to us. You'll also not be able to see the other attendees. And this is just a privacy reason and to ensure there's no background noise as the presenters speak. So if you do have a question, please feel free to ask it in the chat section. And at the end of the session, we'll get to all of your questions. So I advise everyone, ask as many questions as you can. It's not very often that you get someone like Cristian able to answer all your questions. And don't ever think there's a question dumb. Just ask everything. It's always good to get them off your chest. So just a little bit about Netway Networks. Netway Networks was established in 1999, providing managed services, collaboration solutions, everything from Netway security, IT support, strategic technical direction. We now have offices in New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, and most recently, Western Australia. So some of our services include managed services, collaboration, contact center solutions, disaster recovery, virtualization-based security, mobile device management, cloud hosting, network security, hardware and software procurement, support help desk, and then mobile workforce, including telephony. So as some of you might be aware, and some of you might come from one of the other companies of the Penors Technology Group, Netway Networks is part of a larger group of companies called the Penors Technology Group. Now, Penors has been established in the Australian market for a very long time, 100% Australian owned and operated. And it's kind of the management company of the four companies you see on your right, all highly integrated IT entities, providing different areas of IT support to businesses across Australia and the APAC region. So we have over 700 clients across Australia and APAC, and we have offices in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Indonesia, and employees across New Zealand and Southeast Asia. So now I've got all of the housekeeping out of the way. I'd like to introduce our guest today, Cristian. So Cristian, I'm just going to pass command to you. Give me 1 second.
Thanks, Nick, and thanks for that introduction. I'll make sure to send that $50 over to you. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out to meet with us and go through how to stay secure in 2021. So regardless of the size of the business you are, whether you are a large enterprise business or even just a 5-person small business, cybersecurity is pretty important. Attackers these days have become smarter and a lot more trickier when it comes to the way that they attack and implement their exploits. And today, my goal as a presenter is to try to provide you with as much information or relevant information that's going to help you be able to understand what to look out for, as well as protect yourself and what to do if you encounter any of these attacks. So this webinar is going to cover a bunch of different stuff. The evolution of security as a whole, as well as where cybersecurity and the evolution of that, as well as we'll be covering facts about cybercrime relevant to Australia and just understanding that the trend is upwards and how cybersecurity is now taking a bit more of a bigger focus in the IT industry as a whole. Like I said, we'll talk about how to protect yourself. We'll give you real live examples of attacks and emails that we see day to day. And hopefully with the information that we provide, we'll be able to keep you guys safer and secure. At the end of the day, humans are the last line of defense when it comes to security. So we really rely on people having the education or getting the education to be able to protect themselves from those impulsive clicks that you might accidentally do when you're looking at an email. So with that being said, I'll kick it off. So when we're looking at securing your business, back in the day, it used to be all about physical security. You had cameras, you had padlocks, safes, door locks, and generally it was to protect an asset that you had on premise, whether it was valuables like money, jewelry, whatever. So that's how security was initially looked at. However, over time, we're looking at more of the cyber security side of things in terms of looking after your data and accounts. So a lot of the protections that you have now are just not physical; they're also virtual. So this means that you could have appliances like SonicWall firewalls or Cisco firewalls, 2FA, and generally what attackers are after now is your data, your information. So whether that's your password details to banking, whether that's to try and convince you to send out money to them, there's a whole bunch of different tactics that they use. So understanding that security is now evolved from what it used to be is important. So who are we to tell you what cybersecurity is, and why should you listen to us in terms of what we have to say? Well, I think Nick covered it previously, but Netway has been in the industry for over 20 years in the IT infrastructure and managed service industry. What that basically means is that we've had exposure to a large variety of different clients in different industries, and it has afforded us the ability to be able to understand how these attacks come about, the different ways that they come about, as well as understanding the different environments that they can happen in. Our engineers are very skilled. We have a wide range of engineers that we have across different states in different types of IT disciplines, including security. So we're well equipped in terms of understanding the way that IT infrastructure and IT security should be focused. Obviously, we've had first-hand experience with these as well, myself included. I've seen a lot of these attacks happen in the past, not just with clients that we've had come in to Netway, but also with clients in previous roles. And I've seen the type of damage that it can do when you're not careful, or when you do fall victim to one of these attacks. And we're talking about we're not talking about just passwords and stuff like that. We're talking about relationships with clients. We're talking about money lost. There's a lot of tangible issues that come around from this kind of stuff. So also, we're massive nerds. So we like technology. Obviously, we wouldn't be working in the industry if we didn't. But it's also our job to stay ahead of the curve. And for me personally, security is a passion of mine. I know that it's a passion for some of our other engineers. So I believe that with that passion in line, we always keep in front of the latest information to protect our clients. So why should you pay attention if I haven't bored you already? Well, to be honest with you, the struggle is real. Cybersecurity is a growing threat. Year on year, we've seen an increase. In this last year, we've seen $634 million in losses in 2019, just in email scams alone. A large bulk of that is between Queensland, Victoria, and New South Wales. Obviously, those are the more businessy districts in Australia, so they tend to be more targeted. Out of all the world, we're number 5 in the targeted countries. That means that other countries and other people are targeting Australia in terms of infecting clients and getting businesses to transfer money and whatnot. And I'll cover a bit more of that in some later slides. But yeah, like I said, the cybercrime is growing year on year with 28 billion in damages estimate worldwide. Now, the reason you should pay attention is because 95% of cybersecurity breaches can be avoided. It's usually due to human error. You can have the most sophisticated infrastructure to block your traffic, anti-spam, all that stuff, but these attackers find ways around those systems. So ultimately, the last line of defense is the user. So the IT security landscape has evolved a lot over the years. Basically, we've gone from old dial-up internet connections where it will take you 39 years to download 180 megabytes. God forbid that someone picks up the phone when that happens. And now we're currently having high-speed internet where we can stream movies. We've got 5G around the corner, which is set to provide us speeds not ever seen before. And also now, instead of avoiding getting calls, we can actually make phone calls from the internet. So the landscape has evolved a lot. And as a result of that, the security landscape has to be looked at as well. It hasn't been too long ago, before cloud technology started coming in, that organizations and applications that people use were under one roof, which meant that there was a single point of entry for any sort of attack to come in. So you'd have your email servers in your office, you'd have your applications, you'd have your firewall, your voice systems, everything was centralized, and we could control the entire environment from that. in the last couple of years, we've seen a growth in cloud technologies and people adopting that kind of technology. And whilst it presents a great benefit in terms of the ability to not only save money as a business, but also give you guys diversity in terms of the solutions that you implement, it does come with the cost of having multiple entry points and vulnerabilities that need to be looked at and controlled. So our job has become more about not just controlling the localized infrastructure, but also making sure that we're managing and controlling the security in all of these cloud platforms to ensure that no one can get in from any of these attacks. You can just imagine if someone managed to get access to your Office 365 tenancy, what kind of damage that could do to your organization. So it's very interesting from us in that point of view. And speaking of Office 365 and emails, I know this is a bit melodramatic. Like if you do get a spam email, your computer's not going to explode or your building's not going to catch fire. But this is actually a real article, by the way, but it's not because of an email. But when it comes to Office 365 and emails is the primary way that people, attackers, target in order to make sure that they can get access to your systems. And they use a lot of clever ways of doing it. We've seen multiple different types of email scams that they're implementing, and I'm going to cover a bunch of them now so you guys can understand and know. And some of them you might have been across, but others you might have not known about. The first one is phishing, and I think we've all had that email from the Nigerian prince who's offered us, $28 million because of, long lost relative died or whatnot. But generally, phishing is a generic email that is sent across a whole bunch. Think of it as a net that's being cast out into the world and hoping to catch people and get people to bite and provide their information. It's basically social engineering. Usually, it comes with some sort of ultimatum or threat that you'll see in the next couple of slides. When I show you examples. But basically, the aim of a phishing attack is to get you to click on a link or even download something that might compromise your system. So here we have a phishing example, and I wanted to show you this example because it is an obvious phishing attack. But generally with phishing attacks, what you need to look out for is poorly structured sentences, an urgency or ultimatum or threat. So usually they try to inspire some sort of urgency for you to fix something, either by threatening to close your account or delete your services or fining thousands of dollars. Sometimes it's even rewards, not just threats, like you have 20 hours or 20 minutes to claim your prize or whatnot. So, but generally it has some sort of emotionally driven way to try and get you to invest in what they're trying to sell you. They usually come with suspicious links, and usually if you hover your mouse, not click, but hover your mouse over a button like this, confirm ownership here, or in your link where it says click here, you can generally see where it's coming from. And here in this scenario, I've put in here RussianMafia.ru/steal your money/ for God's sakes, don't click. Not all of them are that obvious, but obviously it's good to know that if you click on, say, an Office, or you see an email here from Office 365, if you hover your mouse over it, you can see the URL there and it's coming from office.com. But you'll also see a big telltale sign. It's not always the case, but it is mostly the case, is basically a weird email or a fake email. So this email that you see here, solitaire@GJP India or whatever, is not really from Office 365. I don't need to tell you that. But if you're not looking at the email address, then you might be convinced that this might be a legitimate email. So those are just some things to have a look at. Now, what I put here, suspicious behavior, and what I mean by that is that if you haven't been, like, it's unprompted. Usually these emails come out randomly. Like, you haven't done anything to cause them to come to you. They just pop up one day. So that's what I mean by suspicious behavior. So usually they're unprompted, or something random that just pops up in your inbox. Here's another example. Here you can see again, there's poorly structured sentences, there's an urgency or ultimatum. In this case, We will process your request within 24 hours. All features will be locked or lost. And please, click here to cancel this request. And you can see here there's a weird URL there. Sometimes the signatures can be suspicious and they don't match up with what the service is. So you might see that the Office 365 logo might be misaligned or something like that. So signatures can also be a telltale sign. Again, this is another example for you. This one is a bit trickier because it's trying to imitate an Office 365 domain, but obviously this isn't a legitimate Office 365 domain account, so or email address, I should say. But see here, you can also see there's going to be a threat, there's spelling mistakes, there's grammatical errors, and again, it's got weird signatures. So this is one from the ATO. This one is one that it has happened in the past, and it can actually lead to ransomware, which is something I will cover in future slides. But basically, in the same, it's asking you to download the attached form and then go and follow the instructions. But by the time you open that form, you get infected. Here is another version of this, and as you can see, I've hovered my mouse over this. This actually came in today. And we spotted, I thought, what, I'm going to put it in the slide. So here you can see that I've put my mouse over, and you can see that the link there has nothing to do with the ATO. But something that's interesting about this email is that if you have a look at the email address, it does look like a legitimate email because it's saying ato.gov.au. This is what we call spoofing. And what that is basically when an attacker will use a different email server and will change what the email address it's sending from to appear like it's a legitimate email address. So there's systems that we have in place and solutions that we can put in front of your email server to catch this kind of stuff, because these are the ones that are the trickiest to look at. And if you don't know any better, yeah, you might click on that and find yourself in a world of pain. So I did cover security and how security, has evolved from just being a physical thing to being, also in the virtual realm now. Same goes with, theft. So we've got to stop thinking about theft as just people who go into a shop or a business and shoot up the place, or, bank robbers who are organizing a heist with a driver and, a safe guy and an alarm guy and all that stuff. That stuff's hard. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of preparation, and there's a lot of risk involved. Where you can actually just sit at a Starbucks somewhere with a laptop and achieve the same thing. And I know that sounds like melodramatic, but this actually did happen. So I wanted to talk a bit about the Bangladesh bank heist. This heist basically was carried out by hackers who basically executed $960 million worth of SWIFT transfers. They only got away with 81 million though. But basically, we need to stop looking at physical threats or just only physical threats and understand that this guy here is actually dangerous. So I'm going to cover a bit more about the Bangladesh bank heist because I think it's very interesting, and it kind of shows a bit more about how powerful phishing can be. So when you have a look here, they managed to gain access to the systems and they began using keyloggers. A keylogger is a type of virus that logs every keystroke on your computer. I'll go into it a bit more detail in future slides. But basically what they did was they managed to get access to these employees' computers and were actually able to see the computers, the employees work from their computers. And what they did was they learned the typical transaction sizes of all of these, employees, just not to trigger any sort of alarm or cross checks. And then when they attacked, they basically executed $960 million of SWIFT transfers, going from different countries and into different bank accounts. They managed to get away with 81 million before anyone caught wind of what was happening. And that $81 million was never recovered. The perpetrators are still out there and free. They haven't been caught, basically. And it all started with a phishing email, just like the ones that I showed you before. So it is important to understand that, I'm not just chatting about this because I find it cool. It's very much a real threat. Now, here you can see me on a weekend away. I was actually stuck in an island and I was spearfishing. But that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about spearfishing in terms of what it is against phishing attacks. So with phishing attacks, it's like a net where you're sending out this random emails to everyone and hoping someone bites. Spearfishing is a bit more targeted. It's a bit more heinous in terms of what it's trying to do. It's usually trying to intimidate an employee by impersonating a senior staff or management and trying to get that employee to either provide information or send money across, so make transfers, pay fake invoices and whatnot. So generally with a spearfishing attack, you will see that they'll try to replicate the email address or the domain. In this case, Richard Brown here from Acme Insurance is asking Frank to do a transfer payment. But if you have a look closely at the email, it's tricky because it's not actually an M, it's an RN. So Richard Brown's not really sending this email. It's someone trying to impersonate Richard Brown. And the way they do this is they go through LinkedIn and they check to see what the organization structure is for a company. And based on that, that's how they start to plan for these attacks. It's a bit more planning, a bit more targeted, and usually has a higher success rate than a general phishing attack. But because they prey on fear or intimidation, they generally have an urgency to do something, whether that's urgently give access to this or provide payroll information, or an urgency to transfer money to this account or pay this invoice that was meant to be paid a month ago, it hasn't been paid. Why hasn't it been paid? Please pay it. And it's usually coming from an authority figure. If you get one of these emails and you're not sure whether you should be paying that person or following those instructions, say if it's your boss or say if it's someone senior in your organization, call them and make sure that you confirm it with them. The reason I say this is because this has caught out a lot of people. And last year, there was a lady who was 34, 35, an accountant who paid $200,000 to a Thai bank account because her boss told her to. And he was in Thailand at the time. So, it just happened to be a coincidence. And I think the AFP is investigating it still. But yeah, these attacks can not only harm you as an employee, but harms the business as well. It's very hard to trace back who's done this because there's so many different technologies like VPNs that can hide the tracks of any attacker. But yeah, another thing to look out for is you like phishing, it's unprompted and it's usually suspicious requests. So yeah, just be careful with the phishing attack, the spear phishing attacks. Here's another one, just to give you a bit more of a example. I've blacked out the to and the reply to, but you can see the subject's urgent. Hello, Stuart, I'm in a meeting. Can you please make this transfer quickly? Let me know if you can. I'll send you the details. Now, when I'm not out in the weekends spearfishing, I'm out whaling. No, but whaling is somewhat a bit like spearfishing, except that the victim here is not an employee, but a CEO or an owner or someone up high, like a finance manager. They target that; those become the victims. And generally, the attack kind of comes similar through email or urgent transfer or whatnot, but it's usually imitating a vendor or a carrier. It could be Telestra, could be some sort of vendor like Xero or whatnot, who's asking you to pay outdated invoice or something. It can imitate a client who's changing their account details. So it could be that your client gets they become vulnerable, or a hacker gets into their account, and then they send you information saying, "Hey, our account details have changed. Can you please change them to this?" And then you're paying invoices to that new account, not knowing that really you're paying an attacker. They could also be imitating you. If you're a company that deals with clients and you've had a hacker come in and hack your account or manage to get access to your emails, basically they can impersonate you and send out fake invoices on your behalf to clients. And this is something that could obviously damage your relationship with clients, but also not a really good thing for you to happen to either yourself or your clients. Another one that can happen is they imitate an employee who requests for their payroll details to be changed because they changed banks or whatnot. So these are the types of things that you can find happen with whaling. So here I've put one example. The reason I put this example is because you can have a look at the email here. You can see it says telstra.enterprisebusinesscenter.com. So really the domain is Enterprise Business Center, but what they've done is they've added a Telstra dot to make it seem like it's a Telstra domain. It should actually be the other way around. It should be enterprisebusinesscenter.telstra.com. So you can see here the type of thing that you would see from one of these whaling attempts. So now I'm going to cover a bit more about viruses. And actually, before I even cover viruses, if you're not sure on how to protect yourself with these things, by all means call us and we can have a chat too about them. All right, on to viruses. So there's a whole bunch of different viruses out there that do different things for different purposes. So I want to cover a couple of them which I think are relevant to businesses and you know are potentially very dangerous and harmful. The very first one is the most popular one, which is ransomware. What ransomware is usually a file or attachment that gets sent via email, or a hacker might even penetrate a system and launch this type of virus onto the environment. But basically what a ransomware does is it works in the background silently, encrypting all of your files. This could be your local computer files. If you're on a network, it will encrypt all of the server drives that you're connected to, and it will try to spread itself across to other machines. There have been ransomware softwares that actually do look for other machines and then spread themselves and infect those machines as well. So it can be quite damaging. The reason it's called ransomware is because once that happens, they generally ask you for money to decrypt the files. And a lot of businesses think that this is the easiest way to recover their files. So they pay the ransom. And sometimes, even after they've paid the ransom, then in this case, it's $300 worth of Bitcoin, but I've seen a lot higher than that. They don't decrypt anything. So you get hit twice. Now, if you find yourself in a situation where you get ransomware or you see some sort of ransomware thing like this, disconnect your PC from the network straight away. Tell your manager and call us, and we'll help you. We'll do our best to try and get you guys up to back to where you were. The best defense for ransomware is having backups, not just on-site backups, but cloud backup or off-site backups. The reason being is because if the ransomware finds its way through to your on-site backups, and that's your only sort of backups, then basically you're in a world of pain there. We recommend having off-site backup solutions with all of our clients, and it has saved a lot of clients in the past. If you don't have a backup solution, we've had clients come to us from other IT managed service providers who didn't either do proper backup management or weren't able to recover because there was no backup. And often we have to say to them, look, if there's no backups and your stuff's been encrypted, there's very little that we can do. These encryption viruses are very hard to decrypt. When they first originally came out, they were easier to decrypt, but now they've hardened them so well and they've designed them so well that it's impossible to decrypt your data. And that could be devastating for you as a business owner or employee if it's happened to your machine or whatnot. So it's not a good situation to find yourself in. The next one I want to cover is Trojan Virus. Now, a Trojan is like the Trojan horse from Troy. And basically what this virus does, it creates a backdoor. It's usually implemented the same way as a ransomware virus, where you get it from an email attachment or whatnot. But basically what this does is it actually gets into the system and creates remote access for an attacker to come in and be able to get inside to your network and your network and your IT infrastructure. They may lay dormant for some time, but once they're in there, if you don't have a proper antivirus solution, basically an attacker can come in and then from there keep breaking through the network or the IT environment. Scary stuff. Now, I covered keyloggers a little bit, but here I want to explain what they do. So a keylogger basically copies all of the keystrokes that you put in. Now, this is important to know because if you are using your computer and you have your business machine and it has a keylogger, if you're out on Facebook or if you're doing your own personal internet banking at lunch and stuff, this could be logging those details. So a lot of what we do at work, you have to keep in mind that if it's not just the business that suffers, it could be you as well. So when it logs all the keystrokes, what it does is it sends that information out to the attacker who either programmed the keylogger or has bought the keylogger from the dark web. And basically with that, they can start going into accounts, they can go through the logs and see what you've typed, get passwords and go from there. Yeah, so that's not good. The last one is malware, and basically this one is quite it's smart in terms of what it's designed to do. Sometimes people don't even realize that they have it, but if you notice that you're getting a whole bunch of pop-ups on your machine, chances are that you've been infected with malware. Malware is designed to show advertisements, and they get paid for the advertisements that they show. Not only that, but they also track your internet browsing history, as well as maybe have keyloggers in them that sends information out to the attacker or even a Trojan. A malware embeds itself into your browser as well. So you might think that you're browsing on Google, but you're actually browsing on some random website that this malware's got you going to. So yeah, that's the best way to defend against all of these viruses is to have an adequate antivirus solution like WebRoot or any of the others, and make sure that it's well maintained and it updates and you're getting updates on definitions. I will say with ransomware, the antivirus solutions have become more advanced now. You can get next generation antivirus where it uses AI to be able to detect when you're starting to encrypt stuff. It knows that that's not like normal behavior. So what it does is it actually disconnects your machine from the network when it realizes that things are being encrypted on your computer. I haven't tested them fully to make sure how well they work, but it is a claim from some of the vendors that it is quite adequate and it does work. So yeah, that's what we can expect in terms of next-gen antivirus protection. If that's something that you want to discuss, we're more than happy to go through that with you. Identity theft. Now, you guys might think that this is not that big of a deal, and it's one of the easiest ways to get hacked. So basically, if you go on social media or any of those types of things where you have like these kind of posts where they want to share your favorite candy, share your what's your first job, all these different things. Basically, you're soliciting and you're giving up all of this free information to people who can then use it to try and guess your security passwords. So I guess the whole point of this is just to be vigilant in terms of what you put out there on the internet. I know the internet seems like it's got an interesting place with cats and memes and all that kind of stuff, but not everyone out there is looking for your best interests, and there are people out there who are looking to scam you. So be careful with what you divulge on social media, because if it can be easily used against you. I'd also suggest maybe looking at your privacy settings on your social media to make sure that you don't have your profile out publicly for everyone to see. That's a big deal as well. But yeah, generally with these kind of identity thefts, what they do is they either try to guess your password on different services, or they will call service providers like say Telstra and try to pass off as you and answer the security questions as if they're you. So there's a lot of different things that can happen with this kind of stuff. So just be careful. Password management, finally. So this one is the last one. Now, if you guys have your browser, just open up a new tab or a new Chrome session and type in haveibeenpwned.com and enter your email address there. Now, what this site does is it basically shows you every service or site that has been compromised that you might have signed up to. And in turn, because it has been compromised, then chances are maybe your password has been compromised. So the reason I want to talk about that is because one of the first things that you should do with password management is make sure that you have different passwords for everything. So your Facebook password should be different to your email password, should be different to your banking password, because say, for example, you like to shop at eBay and eBay gets hacked and your account details are then taken from a hacker and sold into the black market. People could use that to try and get into different services, and maybe they might get into your Facebook, or they might get into other things like your internet banking. So just make sure that you try to focus on having different passwords. And yeah, I know it's hard. It's not easy to remember passwords, but that being said, there are password management programs out there that you can use that will basically fill out passwords for you and will change them for you on a regular basis. Two that I can recommend are LastPass and Dashlane. Both of them have free versions of their software and can easily make it easy for you to manage your passwords quicker, or easier, I should say. But yeah, on top of this, the last line of defense for passwords is also multi-factor authentication, or 2FA as some people know it. And basically what that is so when you enter your password in a service, it sends a text to your phone or onto your authenticator app, and you have to punch in that code in order to be able to get in. That way it just secures it, and they know that it's you that's actually trying to access the service. So that's one way to kind of prevent that, but I would suggest that you use a password management solution. And if you're a business owner, or you're thinking about password management in your organization for services such as Xero or MYOB or whatever cloud services that you have, they do provide enterprise password management solutions. That way you kind of protect yourself from having one source of password truth. And if your employees leave the organization, you can be sure to know that they won't have those passwords with them and be able to log in after they've left your organization. One big one that I notice a lot of people don't do is with their organization, they have password management on Chrome enabled, meaning that people can log into their Chrome account or Google account on Chrome, and then whenever they enter passwords in, then Chrome will prompt them to save those passwords, and those passwords are linked to those personal Google accounts, not to your organization. So one of the things that we recommend is to turn that password management off. So hopefully I've given you some information that might be useful to you. So I wanted to give some takeaways here, some of the things to do. The first one, like I said, use LastPass or Dashlane to manage your passwords better. It will take a bit of work to go into each of your accounts and put that information in for then LastPass to then work properly. But once it does, it will be a good password. It will be better than basically no password management. Be more security conscious, and what I mean by that is, don't overshare information with people online. Just think before you click on things, and just be more conscious about that stuff. With financial transactions, if you're getting an email from someone asking you to transfer a lot of money, the best bet is to call that person. That is probably the biggest one. Call that person and confirm with them, because chances are you'll save yourself you and your business a lot of money doing that. Check email addresses. That should just become a habit, that you look at who the emails are coming from. Think before you click on things. Make sure you hover over it, have a look at the link, make sure that it seems like a legitimate link. If you're not sure, call us. We can check it out with you. If you're working from home because of COVID, make sure that your home computers have the latest updates on antivirus and your operating system. Microsoft generally releases security patches on a monthly, and basically they block any sort of exploits that are found in the the operating system itself. So be sure to update your machines. And if you really want to know a bit more, or you want to have us do a once-over, call us and we can do a security audit for you, and we can assess the current lay of the land for your environment, and then cover with you what our recommendations are to make you more secure. So that's it. I guess I'll leave it to questions, and thank you very much for once again for taking the time out to join this webinar. I hope you got some use out of it, and I'll give it back to Nick now.
All right, thank you very much for that, Christian. Very, very much appreciated. Let's jump into some questions we've got. And guys, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat now. Now's the time. We'll get to them before the end of the session. The first question is it safer on your phone with your fingerprint scanner?
Yes. Actually, biometrics is the most secure method of security. And you can see a lot of companies are starting to implement more biosecurity, like Windows Hello and whatnot. So yes, biosecurity is probably the future. Passwords are finicky things, so I see an evolution of a password-less, future where only security works.
Now, from the same person, there's two questions here. Do you need to get antivirus on your iPhone, and with the fingerprint scanner, with banking, is that also a good method?
Yes. Well, with your iPhone, yes, so long as it's a reputable antivirus provider, not like some dodgy third-party developed. When you're downloading apps, you can see who it's been developed by to make sure that it's by the antivirus company. So
perfect. There's also another question. I just checked my personal email address on haveibeenpwned.com, and it's listed. What does this mean?
It probably means that service that you've been using or that it's listed has had some sort of security breach or potential data leak. My suggestion is, if you found that to happen, to maybe check that account, either change the password on it, or if that's the same password you've been using everywhere, maybe start looking at changing your passwords, maybe get Dashlane in and get your password management up to scratch.
Now, another really good question. How do you know if you've been compromised?
That's a good question. It really depends on the situation. Sometimes you don't know when you've been compromised. If you, I guess there's telltale signs with phishing, spearfishing, and whatnot. Obviously, you'll tell. But say, for example, if it is a whaling attack where you're sending out an invoice to someone who said, or you're paying an invoice with an account that hasn't, with a client that said their account has changed, you might find out months down the line when they're like, hey, why haven't you paid us? It's very tricky. So prevention is better than cure, obviously.
Is there an easy way of telling, like, if someone is using a keylogger or anyone's kind of monitoring
Yes.
BP? Does anything flash, or does the mouse move or anything like that?
Generally, as long as you keep your antivirus up to date with the latest definitions, it should be okay. If you don't have antivirus, I would suggest getting it. If you have like a managed service provider like us, we check those things on a monthly to make sure that if there's any threats that have happened, or they even pop up in our alarm systems as well to say, hey, there's been a major infection that's come through. So make sure you keep your antivirus up to date, and that will be the best suggestion.
So one of the attendees had a personator call them pretending to be from Netway, for instance. How would you, and if they're asking for credentials, how do you recommend they respond to something like this?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So one of the clients had an impersonator calling and pretending to be Netway, for example.
Yeah.
They say that they're the person who manages their IT environment, and then they're asking for credentials so they can log in. How would you recommend that they respond to something like this?
That's a good one. So if it is someone from Netway, and generally, okay, so most of our engineers have good relationships with our clients, so you would probably recognize them if they're a regular engineer here. But in saying that, if you're not sure, just tell them you'll call them back. You'll call their main line number and see if that person's there.
And Netway will generally have their credentials to log into things.
Exactly right.
If they're managing desktop support, right? So hopefully that answers your question. Now another one. If everyone's happy to keep going, we're getting a stack of messages, and sorry guys, I'm trying to read them all. What would you suggest for antivirus? Is there a good free one, or is it like on the provisement that you pay for what you get?
Yeah, look, I mean, antiviruses, the free versions come with some features, but not all features. The good thing about paid antivirus is that they come with things like link checks and whatnot, where they actually can scan the links for you. So I would always recommend going with paid antivirus as opposed to non-paid. That being said, we offer antivirus for really cheap. It's not that expensive to get a paid antivirus. If it's like $5 a month, like I would just pay for it.
Yeah. All right. So there's a lot of questions. Guys, if I don't get back to you, I can assure you I'll get back to you by Monday. We'll do a follow-up.
Yeah.
How can I prevent spoofing and whaling? Websites contain basic personal information like names and roles. So, yeah, I think this is a question about, for instance, everyone's information's out there on the web. How can I stop it happening to me?
Do you mean spoofing? You're referring to spoofing and whaling? Yeah. So the first step would be to get anti-spam solution. Generally, with spoofing, to prevent you from being spoofed, as in saying someone spoofing you, hosted email security or anti-spam solutions can prevent that from happening. There's different authorities that you can place on those systems to prevent them from, to recognize that the location that this email is being sent from, the location that this is being sent from is not from the right location, if that makes sense. Because every office, even in Australia, there's a certain amount of IP addresses that you have that correlate with that. So if the email is coming from someone in Indonesia, for example, the system understands that that's probably shady.
Yeah. We're going to just leave with one final question. I think this will be very relevant for everyone in the audience, for me in particular. Am I at the same risk as someone who has a higher profile than myself? So, for instance, me as an end user, I'm the marketing guy at Netway. Am I at the same risk as the CEO of Netway Networks in terms of people trying to attack me?
Absolutely not. I mean, you're a nice guy, Nick. Look, I mean, when we're talking about spearfishing and whaling, we're usually talking about people who have the ability to, say, transfer funds and whatnot. If you're in accounts, for example, you might be in more of a particular risk than, say, someone who's in a reception or whatnot. But don't forget, phishing is not just about, or email attacks are not just about, getting the big dollars from businesses. They do affect people's personal lives too. Like we had the superannuation scam that happened recently, where heaps of people lost their super, and there was a lot of fraud in that. So it doesn't matter. It's irrespective. But yeah, you're more likely to be targeted if you're a high profile person or if you have a high position or in an organization, for sure.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Cristian. Thanks, guys. We might leave it at that. If we can leave on a couple of final notes, Cristian, 7 points before. Most importantly, call Netway. We're here to help. That's the whole reason why we're in this business. And if you're unsure of anything or you want to address anything in your business, maybe you're not a Netway client, please feel free to call us. I'll do a follow-up email within the next week. But if you have anything you need in terms of IT security, managed IT services, desktop support, and so on, please give us a call and we're more than happy to provide you a free quote. Thank you, Cristian, and thank you everyone for attending today. Hope you got a lot out of this session, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.